Folks, here is lecture 8, the last one for our module. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go over figures and graphs. Make my screen bigger so you can see it a little better. Okay, so we've all seen different figures and graphs. You've all looked at papers or charts and whatnot, and we have all kinds of different things that you can make. So we're going to talk about the differences between central tendencies and distributions, as well as correlation and regression graphs. When you look at a figure, I want you to think about these things, right? So this is the y-axis up and down here. This is the y-axis label. We have the treatment labels, or the x-axis. You always have an x-axis label. These little T's on top are called error bars. Sometimes it's standard error, sometimes it's standard deviation. It depends. This section here is called a bar, all right? And you always have a figure legend. These things are required for each of your graphs. So this is, considered it looks like a bar chart, basically. This is going to be a scatter plot. Same thing, y-axis label. Anything that's like a major change, this would be your central data point that makes a big change where your x affects y. Here's the origin at 0, 0. You always have an x-axis label, a figure, a minor tick that's not numbered. So every single tick doesn't have to be numbered. These symbols are different. See, these are squares, these are triangles, circles. Okay, so you're gonna, and then there's always a legend or a key to the different symbols. Best types of graph for each question. So when you're looking at differences between groups, bar graphs are usually the best to use. You can see right here, different habitats, mean percent hatch. So it looks like we're using the hatching success of unfertilized eggs of mayflies. So this is a nice, easy graph, black and white, which is fine. Looks at the data. It's very simple. It looks like 96 was much lower than 97 for the lake, for the permanent stream, but the temporary stream, it was much higher. This is the standard error, which is these error bars, which you have to set. You can't just slap random ones on there. When you're looking at differences between distributions, you can use what's called a frequency histogram. So it's a bar type graph that shows the distribution of individuals across the axis. So we have old and young, and it's distributed across height. So you see a big difference here, not just your standard bar graph. When you have a correlation or regression, you're going to want an XY scatter plot and always have that best fit line for the regression analysis, okay? Here, again, we have the number of seeds and plant dry mass. We have our little legend, the tick marks, where everything starts. Okay, these are our data points, and this is our regression line in the blue here. So these are all the pieces of the graphs that you need to have. So which graph is best, right? It kind of depends. Depends on what you're trying to show, if you're able to print in color or not, what groups are looking at them. Some people really like these pie charts, some people hate them. Some people look at a graph like this with the dots and the bars, and they're like, what does that even mean? So it really just depends on your audience, okay? What's wrong with these graphs? So let's start up here on the far left. So we have time in weeks on the x-axis and percent improvement. All right. So capsules, placebo, dog study, beverage. Dogs compared to people should be a bar graph, right? Because you're trying to compare dogs to people in both of these things, and you can't really do that with this scatter plot graph. Product Y and different amounts of money, no idea what this means. That's not a great graph. Down here, women, village elite, and youth from different programs and their scores. So this should be a scatter plot instead of a bar chart. And then student grades down here, this is just really messy and hard to read. Does this make sense how weird this is? Like, can you even really see what that is? So you have to choose the right graph for your data and your audience. For a table, it's really important that your table goes on top. So in the figures, you put your description on the bottom. For the table, you put your description on top. So it's a legend. It tells you what everything is. You have column titles, the whole body of the table, and then you can put footnotes if you need to. It's really important to have a nice line separating out the information so that it's easy to read. This is pulled from a paper, so it's kind of light, sorry. When you're presenting a whole bunch of data, you can make a bunch of tables, but you have to keep it really organized. See how this one says table 2? There's the data on top, then we have the variables. This is really common in a paper where you have a whole bunch of stuff like this. So you just have to be really, really organized and make sure spacing looks good. If you look at the left one, see how the kind of spaces are weird, but on the right, these are nice and lined up. Some people get real weird about things like this, so you want to make sure it looks good. Always have somebody with a critical eye look at your stuff before you turn it in. And all of our tables have to have a legend as well as our figures. So basically, I should be able to look at your table and then read this information on top, and I shouldn't have to ask you any questions about it. So you need to write it out. Other types of figures that we'll learn how to make. I'm not going to make you do this matrix because that's just too much. You can use pictures of things with like big arrows pointing to them. This is a GIS graph down here on the left, same thing in the middle. And then, photos, like this is an insect collection. There's all kinds of ways to make different images and diagrams to show your data. Tables and figures are something that are required. You just have to make sure that they're clear, well labeled, and it's described. It must be able to stand by itself and somebody understands what it means. If someone can't look at your table or your figure or your picture and read the description, and if they still have questions, it means you did not do a good enough job. All right, always label your axis. Make sure you effectively use space and use distinguishable markers and lines. Okay, so what is going on with my face over here? I'm moving that. So you can see each one of these graphs, like the far one on the right has nice big labels, but there's also like some weird drawing there. Maybe that's good, but it has, a better legend, control, and juvenile hormones. You can actually tell what it is, even though it's kind of goofy looking, and then you see on the first one and the second one that doesn't even get to 0 down here. It falls off it falls like off the chart. There's huge gaps up here that you don't need. So it got a little bit better in the middle. And then this last one has all the pieces, even though it's a hand drawing. That's okay. Error bars represent either standard deviation or standard error. They can also represent that 95% confidence interval. Make sure you indicate whatever type of error bars you have. So see how it says down here in figure 2, mean plus SE. So that's standard error proportion. So you have to make sure you know which ones you're using, and it has to be labeled. When you make graphs from data, I usually use it in Excel first. That's why I'm having you learn how to do both. When you do the error bars, it's usually a difference between the measures of central tendencies, so be careful. Scatter plots are great for correlations and regressions, and histograms are really good for frequency distributions. And that's it. We're going to do some cool graphs in just a little bit.